It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I came up and I got the air. I got back on my board, I paddled back out, and I got some more amazing waves. That's really the take-home message. Big waves, parenting world, heavy water. But so long as we can stay calm, get out of the sweep, it'll work out.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the founder of happyfamilies.com.au. I'm here with Kylie, my wife, and mum to our 6 daughters. Kylie, the weekend is just around the corner, and that means our Friday episode of I'll Do Better of the podcast is called I'll Do Better Tomorrow. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm excited for the weekend. I'll Do Better Tomorrow, for those of you who are new to the podcast, is the opportunity that we take to reflect on the week that was and work out how do we do things better? Where did we go wrong? What do we do right? How do we do better tomorrow when it comes to the way we're raising our family? Kylie, just before we get into it, I want to reflect on last week's I'll Do Better Tomorrow. If you didn't catch it, I think the only way to talk about it is to confess that I said last week that I wanted to quit parenting. I'm done. I've had enough. I'm just over it. And we'll talk about this in just a sec, but I hate to say it, it got worse. It actually got worse. More to come on that in a moment. However, as a result of our podcast, I shared what I had talked about on Facebook, and a couple of hundred comments came through it. It kind of blew up. The parenting expert, one of Australia's leading parenting educators, saying that he wants to stop being a parent. I guess got people, most people were actually quite empathic and also shared, yeah, I want to quit parenting as well. It's hard. But I got one email. In fact, we received this email from Kira, who emailed us podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au. And Kylie, here's what she said. Morning, Justin and Kylie. I'm in tears. Thank you. It's funny that, isn't it? I'm in tears. Thanks so much for making me cry. Firstly, Justin, thanks for sharing your open and honest opinion about feeling over parenting at the moment. It was greatly appreciated and deeply felt. Second, Kylie is a mum of 4 whose eldest is currently 16. You had me in tears. I felt like maybe I've lost her forever, but to know that she will come back if I can just hang in there maybe for a couple more years was so reassuring. I'm a long-time listener, a huge fan and supporter of your work, and having moved to the Sunshine Coast in January last year also, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you both every day. Thanks, and enjoy your we time this weekend. So that was from Kira. What a wonderful email. Podcasts at happyfamilies.com.au if you have any feedback for us on the podcast. Kylie, I think that off the back of that email and off the back of last week's podcast, which is definitely worth a listen if you missed it, let's talk about our I'll Do Better Tomorrow this week. Can I go first since I've preempted?
Go for it.
Okay. It got worse. I wanted to quit parenting. When we recorded the podcast, it went to air on Friday. It dropped on Friday. And the weekend was even worse. In fact, in some ways, Kylie, I feel like how do I say this? 20-something years ago, when I quit my radio career and went back to school so I could be a better parent, I did it because I was just making such a mess of things. And in some ways, I feel like I'm no better now than I was then. Like, I just cannot believe how difficult things have been just recently. I feel like I absolutely blew it across the weekend. And because I blew it so badly, it put me into a great big spin. I was already feeling lousy, but then I started to feel lousy-er. And I don't remember the last time that I felt so bad for such a prolonged period of time. I knew what I needed to do. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. People recognized that I wasn't doing well. They reached out and I ignored them, didn't want to talk to anybody because what am I going to say? I don't have conversations with people about all this awful stuff that they can't do anything about either. I don't want to talk about it. Really, really, really tough time. And I had an experience while I was out surfing trying to clear my mind. For those who don't know, I love surfing, and because we live on the Sunshine Coast, we've had absolutely enormous surf for the last week or so. I jumped off the rocks at my favourite point break nearby, and it was treacherous jumping off the rocks, really, really dangerous. Lots of water sweeping across the rocks, and it's just not a smart thing to do. You have to be very experienced to do it. But I got to the edge of the rocks. I jumped off the rocks, paddled out, caught a couple of waves, and at one point, after a few waves, I ended up in this current. And no matter how much I paddled, I couldn't get out of the current. I was trying to paddle back out past the waves. The waves kept on coming through and pushing me into the current, the sweep, the tide, all that sort of stuff was just holding me in place very, very close to a really big rock wall. And no matter how hard I paddled, I just could not get out. After about 15 minutes, I realized that I was in a predicament. And so I turned my surfboard around and I actually caught one of the waves even further further away from where all the waves were breaking. And basically I went into shore, climbed up the rocks, ran back around the beach to the rocks where you jump off. And this time I couldn't get back out. The tide had changed in the intervening 40, 50, 60 minutes, and there was too much water sweeping across the rocks. The surf was bigger as well, and it was simply impossible to get off the rocks. And so I had to run back along the beach and paddle out near that rock wall where I'd been caught in that sweep already. And it took me about 25 minutes to paddle back out and start catching waves again. As it happens, I caught some of the best waves of my life that day, and some of the biggest waves as well. But while all this was going on, I was reflecting on the whole parenting thing. There's a metaphor here. This applies to parenting.
Well, as you were sharing your story, I was literally going, this is explaining my whole life.
Yeah.
Literally, there are some times where I feel like I'm stuck on the rocks and there's nowhere to go. Everywhere looks like it's covered in glass and I can't make a right move.
Well, there's no glass on the rocks at this particular Point Break, but there's a lot of barnacles and there's a lot of sharp things. I mean, I'm still nursing the wounds on my feet from a few cuts from those rocks. But the reality is parenting can feel a little bit treacherous. It can feel like the water is sweeping all around us. It can feel like there's so much coming at us.
Or that no matter how hard you paddle, you're just stuck.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Even if you get off the rocks and you get into the water, there are some incredible highlights. There are some moments where you go, oh my goodness, this is the best. But then 5 minutes later, you're in that sweep and you're paddling like hell to get out of it and you just can't. And you have to turn around and go back in and start all over again. And that's kind of how it's been. That's kind of how it's been. It's been really a tough kind of week. And it's just been, there's been a handful of moments where a child has come in and sat on the bed and said, hey, I love you, Dad. Or what you did for Valentine's Day, which maybe you're going to talk about later, I'm not sure. But you did a really special Valentine's Day for me and the kids and put together a big Valentine's wall with all the different things that we love about everyone in our family. And it's when you're in that sweep, you're in that current and you put in the extra effort, you paddle extra hard. Or alternatively, you catch a wave into the beach and you reset before you go back out and face the waves again. And I feel like that's what this week has been quite a lot of for me. So my older better tomorrow is reset, get out of the sweep, get off the rocks, get into the place where you can actually catch the waves, metaphorically speaking. That is, take a breather, go for a walk, talk to the kids, do whatever you need to reset and get family life back on track, because sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it's just really, really hard. And we beat ourselves up so much as parents when we get it wrong, especially when we're a parenting expert and we've written 8 books about it and we're supposed to know all about it and then we still get it wrong. It's a tough gig. So here's to a much better week with a whole lot of resets taken care of. Is there anything about that you want to pick apart or add to, or do you want to share your older better tomorrow?
Well, I guess my experiences just flow on from that, because obviously I'm intimately entwined in your experiences. And so for me, watching you spiral downwards is always really challenging. Unlike you, who has been given endless opportunities to practice being empathic and sympathetic towards me in my down spirals, I have not had the same opportunities. You have always been the rock in our home. You've been very pragmatic. You're not particularly emotional about things. You have a lot more clarity of thought in stressful situations. And so when you are not doing well, for me, it actually is a little bit of a trigger. And I think that there must be something I'm missing. If you're this worked up about it, even though I know the circumstances, even though I know the situation, clearly I am not seeing everything, because if I did, I would be just as worried as you are, or I would be just as upset as you are. There's something I'm missing. That's how I see it. So it's not about the fact that clearly this must be my fault or anything like that. It's literally because I have such a high respect and I guess awe at the way you see the world. When you're not seeing the world the same way I'm seeing it, all of a sudden I just I go into panic.
Is it okay if I jump in for a sec and just highlight two things based on what you're saying? Every couple, there's going to be somebody who's, I guess I don't want to use this term because I don't see myself as this, but for simplicity's sake, the strong one, the anchor, the rock, whatever metaphor you want to use. To me, that's you. But it's interesting that you see me as that, because I just think that you're the glue that makes our family hold together. Nevertheless, if you're saying that about me, the pressure that the rock of the family feels in terms of that's a big weight to carry. It's a big weight to carry. And if you think that the entire emotional well-being of your family is predicated on you holding it together, that really boosts the challenge, and it makes you feel even worse when you're falling apart. I think it's worth highlighting. And also, secondly, if you're a single parent, if you're doing it on your own, you know that it all comes down to you. Just want to acknowledge that if you're a single parent right now and you're listening, there's a lot on your shoulders. It's a heavy, heavy weight to carry.
And so often for me, the challenge is how to support you when I'm actually slowly falling apart inside because you're falling apart, and not taking any of it personally, because I actually deep down understand that it isn't about me, but all of my attempts to be helpful often hinder the process because I actually kind of start to want to problem solve. I just want to fix it because I don't like this feeling at all. I don't want this to continue. So I can see the solutions inside. I know exactly what needs to happen, and I want it fixed.
And how do I respond when you try to tell me how to fix it?
You pretty much walked away. I can't do this. I can't talk to you right now. And you left.
Because I actually know. I know.
And that's what I struggle with more, because I know you know. And I'm like, if you know, why are you not just doing it? You know exactly what you need to do.
Sometimes you just can't do it. Sometimes it's just too hard. That's the challenge. That's the great challenge, being able to get past that and do it. But sometimes you can't. You're paddling and paddling and paddling, and you just can't get out of the sweep.
And so I was really grateful that on Sunday I had an opportunity to speak with a friend and just, I guess, get my own perspective on things. And it wasn't actually even about you. It was literally about me and how I was processing what was going on, and just needing somebody to kind of say, I see you, I get it. And this person hasn't experienced any of the things that we're going through right now, but they were able to literally weep with me and just recognize that where I am right now, where we are right now in our family circumstances is really hard. It's just really hard. And there isn't actually any solutions right now. It's just hard. Just like you being out in that, massive current and paddling and paddling and paddling and feeling like you're not getting anywhere. That's kind of where we're sitting right now with things. And so I was able to come home with a little bit more clarity and just calm and peace, inner peace, that it was going to be okay. And you had sent me a text earlier in the day to just kind of explain to me how you were feeling, and the acknowledgement that you know what you need to do and you don't need me to tell you what to do. And that you just needed me to love you.
Yeah.
And when I sat down with you, I just said, I don't actually know what to do right now, because I think that I'm being helpful, but obviously everything that I'm doing to be helpful actually pushes you further away from me. And you were able to articulate just so beautifully that you just wanted me to treat you as though there was nothing wrong, that you weren't broken, that you didn't need fixing, that you were just the person that I've always loved, and that I would continue to love you exactly the same way. And I took that on board, and that was really hard, because in spite of the fact that I know that what's going on is actually not about me, I obviously will take things that happen personally. And so trying to get into a space where I can just go, you know what, this isn't about me, and he just needs my love right now, took a little bit of effort. But on Sunday night, I sat down with all the kids, and you kind of came in halfway through it, and we were talking about Valentine's Day coming up and all of those kinds of things. And I asked Miss 8 if she'd say our family prayer to head us off to bed. And this most angelic little girl just said the most beautiful prayer over our family, that we would find a way to love each other. And just that one little thing from the youngest member in our family just melted my heart and helped me to recognize that all any of us want is love. No matter what we're experiencing in life, we just want to be loved. And so I was able to kind of be what you needed me to be in that moment. And over the next few days, there was just this beautiful shift. The load, the heaviness that we're carrying is still there. But I feel like we were able to come together in a way that lightened the individual load that we were carrying together.
Yeah. I hope that the take-home message that you get from this podcast is, I guess, twofold. Number one, family life can be really hard. And even without family life can be really hard. Personally, we all carry a load, and sometimes we cope with it really, really well, and other times it gets too much, and we just kind of have to put it down and have a rest for a day or two or a week or two, and that's actually okay. But we've got to be able to figure out a way that we can navigate our relationships and our interactions with others while we're doing that. And I think over time, you and I have gotten pretty good at it. I mean, we've been married for 25 years next month, and it's taken a lot of practice, but I think we're dealing with those tough times better now than ever. The second thing that I hope you take from this as a take-home message is that life, given enough time, sorts itself out. We get out of the rip. The big waves stop. The cyclone goes away. The ocean calms. We find an opportunity to catch the waves and have those highlights. And I really want to come back to that. While I was surfing over the last week, I have literally had some of the best waves of my life. But those waves have required a lot of work.
Effort.
So much effort. I have paddled and I reckon I've lost about 5 kilos from paddling so much this week. And I have been in some rocky places, and I've also taken a couple of beatings. I took one hold down on one wave that was one of the longest hold downs that I've ever had in my life. I was stuck on the bottom of the reef, the rocks down there, and the wave just kept on holding me down. And I knew I had to stay calm. I knew I had to just let the wave wash over me, and eventually it would pass. But at some point, I started to realize that I was running out of air. And as I swam to the surface, because the wave had gone, I couldn't believe how far away the surface was. Like, it was shocking to me how long I stayed under the water. But I came up and I got the air. I got back on my board, I paddled back out, and I got some more amazing waves. And I think that's really the take-home message. Big waves, parenting world, heavy water. But so long as we can stay calm, get out of the sweep, it'll work out. Have I pushed the metaphor too far, or is that okay?
No, I think it's great.
Okay.
For
All
me,
right,
for me, the big learning, and it was amplified watching you go through it, is that when our kids are having big emotions, as the big people in the room, we just want to fix it.
Yeah.
And your experience with me trying to fix it was withdrawal.
Yeah, just treat me like nothing's the matter.
Leave me alone.
And I'll figure it out.
I can't do this.
Yep.
And so to see that and recognize in such a just tangible way that all you actually needed was for me to just love you seems so easy, but it's really hard because we so often take things so personally when our loved ones, whoever they are, kids, adults alike, are having big emotions.
Yeah, and those big emotions are never about you. They're always just about what's going on inside the person.
But the load that it's taken off me to recognize that it's not my responsibility to fix it. I don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
I fix it by actually just loving you.
Strong take-home message. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rawn from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. Have a great weekend. We really hope that if you're carrying a heavy load, that you find some of those perfect parenting waves to catch across the weekend. And if you'd like more information about making your family happier, please visit us at happyfamilies.com.au.